members, elected leaders from Western, from on national TV and radio stations. It stated that following a meeting held at the rural home of Cotu Secretary General, Mr. Francis Atwoli in Kakamega, it had been resolved that a leaders' meeting would be held in Bukhungu Stadium to discuss Luhya unity and the political path that the people of Murembe should take in future elections. We noted keenly that the Secretary General, among other decrees, stated that he would, at a subsequent date, arrange for another meeting at the same venue, where he would read out a list of people to be elected in various political positions in Western Kenya, including governors, senators, MPs, MCAs, and women representatives. Interesting. We understood that Mr. Atwoli would determine that list. The consultation with, we determined the said list in consultation with some leaders. We did not know where Mr. Atwoli derives the mandate to speak for the people of Western when they have elected leaders. We know Mr. Atwoli to be Cotu Secretary General. We understand him when he speaks about industrial issues. He loses us, however, when he goes beyond that mandate. We also noted that these baffling decrees were made under the watchful eyes of political leaders from outside Western Kenya. They watched and listened carefully, like the true owners of the meeting, of the message that Mr. Atwoli and the Kakamega Governor, Mr. Paranya, delivered. In effect, both Mr. Atwoli and Governor Paranya were only sounding boards and mouthpieces serving external interests. We noted, too, that the announcement of 26 December made some vague pronouncement about drumming up support for the BBI that was made public on 27th November. Efforts have since steadily moved away from a Luhya Unity Call meeting to a BBI campaign meeting. It also seems to be moving away from a collective leaders meeting to an audio meeting. Remarks by Senators Orengo and Senator Ongeri this week to the effect that other parties would also organize similar meetings only adds to the confusion. Going forward, we'll treat the proposed meeting as an ODM affair. We also question the sincerity of the proposed meeting as a platform to popularize the BBI report, seeing that the same elements now calling to support, are also on record as expressing disappointment with the parts of the BBI report, particularly those that touch on the executive. We are left wondering whether they are going to drum up support for a part of the report or the entire report. Remarkably, the BBI view gathering process was reopened on 12th December 2019 through a presidential announcement. The fresh start of the process is awaiting gazettement. It's not clear at all, therefore, which BBI views the meeting is supposed to drum support for. Is it the report as is now in public, or is it the one that will follow the soon-to-begin collection of views? Senators Orengo and Ongeri have also announced that there will be a BBI referendum about June or July this year. This whole thing is generating unnecessary controversy and friction in the country. While it does not seem to be realistic at all to speak of a referendum on BBI at that time, we cannot understand why the owners of this process cannot produce a timetable of processes and activities so that everyone can see clearly where they propose to take the BBI and with it the country. We urge them to proceed to produce a timetable now. The referendum call is also confusing. It is instructive that Senators Orengo and Ngeri have termed the the IBC Commission a criminal enterprise. But they have gone on to ask that this criminal enterprise should manage the referendum, following which it should be disbanded. This is a confusing bag of contradictions. How can a sane country trust a constitutional referendum with an entity it considers to be a criminal enterprise? As I get towards the finish, as a country, we have so far dealt too casually with the most important institution we have, our Constitution. Ever since the BBI process was mooted, we have treated the Constitution casually ever since the BBI process was mooted. We must wake up to the reality that the Constitution is the supreme source of the laws of the land. We cannot afford to subject it to what have sometimes looked like whimsical machinations. We cannot use it to divide the country for passing political goals. It's also time we get serious about the BBI process. We call for speedy gazettement of the extension of this process with the very clear terms of reference. Soon after this, the technical team should produce a detailed timetable for the way forward. Anything short of this is to play wicked political games in the guise of BBI. To this extent, we will not be participating in the 18th January meeting, which is essentially an ODM affair. We propose that the 18th meeting be postponed until an elected leaders meeting is held and until elected leaders meeting and other stakeholders have held a meeting and agreed on the agenda and the content of what should be discussed on that day. Lastly, it just turns out by coincidence that we as leaders had requested the manager receiver of Mia Sugar Company to give us a briefing on the issues around the revival of the Mia Sugar Company, and also to enable us to reflect on issues of economic importance for the Western region on the 18th. And we propose to proceed without engagement on the 18th. So 18th would not be a suitable date for the so-called leaders meeting. Those are our remarks. Thank you very much, members of the press. There has been wide consultation. Maybe not everybody, not 100%, but by far a majority of the leadership, elected leadership. This did not happen this time. We have, thank you, Nana. What I have said, and maybe you might have missed that, is that first, we don't think the meeting should go on because it purports to represent all of us and our views have not been collected. We are saying a meeting similar to that can only be held after all elected leaders and other stakeholders sit together and agree on the critical things to be discussed and the timing and so on and so forth. On that day, we had already requested the receiver manager in Mumias to give us the briefing as I indicated. And that's even of greater significance to a region like the Western, where there is huge unemployment, the economy is in serious depression. So these consultations are extremely important, and we intend to continue with that meeting on that day. Thank you. One on this side. It's 2 pages, lengthy, but as far as statements go, but I'll try and be as fast as possible through it. This is a joint statement by like-minded members of Parliament from Western Kenya, regardless of our political party affiliation. We who are gathered here to issue this statement belong to different parties in the country. We have, however, agreed to address the matter at hand as one united voice from the Western Kenya region. Accordingly, this statement is issued following wide and thorough consultations among ourselves. We represent the voices of leaders and citizens from the counties of Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, Bungoma, and we were going to have a colleague from Tanzania. We already have consulted with them. He's not here now. Our focus today is on a purported Western Kenya meeting that has been proposed for 18th January 2020 to be held in Bukhungu Stadium, Kakamega. As legislators from Western Kenya, we want to state very clearly that we do not Yes, we have reached out to as many members of Parliament as we could, being a recess time, and many members are either in their constituencies or out of the country, and our ODM members are also members of this caucus. We have, I think, 8 elected ODM members in the Western region. So yes, they are members of this caucus. Also chair of the Western MPs caucus of Western parliamentary members of parliament. They say, please just repeat it. We are set now. Thank you very much for coming. Honorable Adagala, MP for Vihiga.